I'll take that down. The face behind the book. So today is Wednesday, and we're on chapter 6 of Finding Atticus. And before we start, for those who are using this as your English lesson at home, I have 4 vocab words for you. Flabbergasted means shocked. Reverberated means that it echoes or echoed. Transformed means something's changed. And defective meaning something has flaws or there's something wrong with it. And then at the end, I'm going to have you just think about one of the sayings, one of Grandpa's sayings that comes up in this chapter. So we're going to get right into the reading. This is chapter 6, and this is Friday in the book. So it's Friday morning. She woke up that morning, went to school. Well, she got a call from Charlotte saying Atticus was missing and she and her mother were searching for them. The search. By the time Jamie arrived at the kennel, Charlotte was frantic. She burst through the door with Pepper close at her heels. Her eyes were red and puffy. Jamie's heart sank. What had she done? Jamie, I'm so glad you're here. There was hardly time for Jamie to drop her bike before Charlotte wrapped her arms around her. I kept procrastinating with getting that latch fixed. I never imagined Atticus would challenge it. She let go of Jamie and took a deep breath. Now this. Jamie swallowed hard. It's not your fault, Charlotte. I'm sure we'll find him. I have a feeling he saw something outside his kennel and went after it, Charlotte said. Then the door gave way and he was off. Charlotte's words tumbled out like her mind was going 1,000,000 miles per hour. What if he's been hit and he's lying in pain in a ditch or field somewhere? What if he tangled with a coyote? Don't think that, Charlotte. He's okay. I know he's okay. Jamie's stomach knotted and twisted with every deceptive word she spoke. She hadn't imagined the situation playing out like this. She hadn't considered that Charlotte would think all of these horrible things might have happened. Charlotte pushed her fingers through the tangled mass of curls above her ears. Oh, man, I don't know what I'm going to tell Mike if I can't find Atticus. He's expecting me to have him on that plane tomorrow morning. Afraid of saying the wrong thing, Jamie didn't say anything. She'd feel like a creep if she told Charlotte she was sure they'd find Atticus before tomorrow, because she knew they wouldn't. Maybe Sunday, but for sure, they weren't finding him tomorrow. Let's just start looking, Jamie suggested. Mom's coming to help after she gets Haley on the bus. But you have to get to school, Charlotte protested. I can go in late. I have band, English, and then study hall. All of our competitions are over for band, so we're just playing around with possible music for next year. For English, we're now just doing review. I have an A+ average in the class. It's okay. Charlotte nodded and glanced around like she was hoping Atticus would suddenly appear. Where have you looked? Jamie asked. All through the kennel, of course. In the house, around the outside of the house. Charlotte scanned the yard. If he was within hearing distance, he'd come when I call his name. He's obviously not nearby. Then I'll go to the pond, Jamie suggested. You know he loves to swim. Good idea. I'll walk to the neighbors and see if they've seen him. Charlotte started to walk away and then turned around. You have your cell phone on? Jamie took it from her shorts pocket and checked it. Yeah, it's on. Okay, call me immediately if you find him or have any clues. I will, Jamie said. Charlotte jogged down the driveway toward the road. Jamie couldn't move. It was one more thing she hadn't anticipated. She hadn't anticipated Charlotte being so upset. Why hadn't she thought of that? And now what could she do about it? She sighed and turned to start across the yard toward the pond and the field beyond. She could come back and tell Charlotte she found some clues, but what good would that do? Charlotte would race off in that direction to search, just to come back disappointed again. And Jamie wouldn't feel any better about the pain she'd caused. No, it was better to just let things be. In 2 days, she could bring Atticus back home and pray no one would know she had taken him in the first place. After pretending to search by the pond and the fields around the kennel, Jamie returned to Charlotte's house. Charlotte and her mom sat on the wicker chairs on the porch. Charlotte's shoulders were hunched forward in a look of defeat. They both looked up hopefully when Jamie emerged from the hedgerow at the side of the house, but then slumped back down when they saw she was alone. Jamie walked slowly up the stairs. Today wasn't nearly as hot as yesterday had been, but sweat gathered on her palms as she approached. She asked the obvious question, even though she knew the answer. No luck? Both women shook their heads. Charlotte leaned back in the chair and let her head flop against the back. She looked much calmer than she had before. It doesn't make sense that Atticus would run off. Even if he got out, I think he'd come to the house and wait on the porch for me to get up. Maybe he was chasing something and lost his way, Jamie offered. Charlotte nodded slightly. Possible, but I'm not so sure now. Jamie leaned against the porch railing. Are you going to keep looking? We can't give up. She hoped her concern sounded genuine. She was sure if this were real that she wouldn't want Charlotte to just stop looking. I have to take care of the other dogs. I'm sure they're way past hungry. Charlotte rocked herself forward and stood. I have to think positively. We've looked everywhere. I'm sure he'll find his way home. I'm going to leave the kennel doors and windows open. Maybe if he hears the other dogs barking for breakfast, it will bring him running. She gave Jamie a wan smile. Have you ever known Atticus to miss a meal? Jamie shook her head, actually feeling a bit of relief because Charlotte was calmer. She wasn't normally emotional, which was why her initial reaction when Jamie arrived had been so disconcerting. This was more the Charlotte that she had always known. He'll show up. She mock-punched Jamie's shoulder. Thanks for your help, kid. Now get off to school before you miss any more classes. I'll come back after school, Jamie offered. Charlotte pursed her lips and nodded. That'll be great, and I'm sure Atticus will be here waiting for you. Her voice didn't sound like she was convinced that would really happen. She smiled anyway, and then continued down the stairs toward the kennel. I hope so, Jamie mumbled. Jamie's mom rose from her chair. Want to ride to school? No, thanks. I'll take my bike so I can ride back here after. Jamie retrieved her bike from the middle of the lawn and mounted it. Bye, Mom. See you later, Char. Charlotte, already at the kennel door, raised her hand without turning around. Jamie feared she was crying again. Anger heated her neck. Why did she have to hurt Charlotte in order to save Atticus? It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Jamie put her foot on the bike's pedal and started to push off. Although she hadn't planned it, she wanted to let Atticus out again before she went to school. Since she was already late, a few more minutes wouldn't matter. It would make her feel better just to know he was still okay. She started down the driveway. Jamie? Her mother called. Jamie stopped the bike and put her weight on one foot while she turned around. Yeah? Your backpack's in the car. Don't you think you'll need it? Oh, yeah. She rode back and took it from her mother's outstretched hand. Thanks. I guess I'm kind of distracted. Chin up, her mother said. Atticus will show up. Jamie stared at her, wondering for a moment if she should just spill her guts and tell her mother everything. Maybe she and Charlotte would take pity on Jamie, not be mad, and not send Atticus to Illinois. Yeah, and maybe I'll be crowned Queen of England too, Jamie thought. No, she'd started all of this. She had no choice but to see it through. In the end, she was sure it would all be worth it. I'll see you tonight, Mom. I love you. I love you too, Jamie. Be safe. The final two words made Jamie's heart lurch. Yeah. Her voice came out as a croak, and she started down the driveway. Tears sprang to her eyes. There it was. It was what her father always said whenever Jamie was going to do something. Be safe. Then, after he died, it was as if her mother needed to carry on the tradition in order to keep her father's memory alive. Jamie remembered saying the same words to him when he left that morning last October to go to California to fight the wildfires. Be safe, Smokey. She'd called him Smokey after Smokey the Bear for as long as she could remember. Many of the notes and cards he'd sent to her he'd signed with Love, Smokey. He'd even sent her a text message the morning before he died and ended with, "Be safe, love, Smokey." Tears raced down her face, and she wiped them away with her finger before they got far. Oh, how she missed him. And then she thought of Atticus. This was why she was putting everyone through this, she reminded herself. It was so she wouldn't lose another thing that she loved. As Jamie approached the cabin, Atticus's face appeared in the window, his low barks muffled by the glass. Between barks, his tongue hung from his mouth, and Jamie swore he was smiling. She wiped away the remaining tears that clung to her cheeks. She picked up her pace, vaulting over the last few small tree trunks that dotted the forest floor. "I'm coming, Atticus." The pitch of his bark rose with his excitement. He disappeared from the window, and just the end of his tail flicked up into view as Jamie assumed he jumped off the bench. When she didn't get there as quickly as he expected, he was back at the window again, his barks becoming more insistent. "Yes, I know, Atticus. Give me a sec." Her nose was still stuffy from crying, making her voice nasally. She reached the cabin and entered the combination into the lock. On the other side of the door, Atticus continued to bark, and then he stopped and breathed loudly at the crack in the door frame, sniffing so forcefully that he sounded like a whale breaching the surface of the ocean. The lock clicked open. She took it off and pulled open the door. Atticus sprang through the opening, nearly knocking her over. His nose shot up in the air, and his black nostrils quivered. He circled her, sniffing frantically at her clothes. "You smell pepper, don't you? He's not here." Jamie dropped to her knees, ignoring the tiny sticks that jabbed into her bare skin. All she wanted was to hug Atticus. She buried her face in his fur. "I'm sorry, Atticus. I know you're lonely." Her voice cracked, and the wounds inside were reopened. She cried for the hurt she still felt whenever she thought of her dad, and for the hurt she was causing Charlotte. She cried because she was no longer really sure that what she was doing was right. And then she cried because she had no idea how she was going to make this mess right again. Her cell phone beeped with a text message. Reluctantly, she pulled away from Atticus, took the phone from her pocket, and flipped it open. Atticus pushed his muzzle under her arm and up into her face, his rough tongue flicking at her ears. "Atticus, no!" She pushed her free arm to block him and push him away so she could check her phone. The letters on the screen were wavy from her tears. She rubbed her eyes with the heel of her hand and then looked back. It was a message from Stephanie, her best friend. Jamie looked at the timestamp. Steph had sent the message while passing from first to second period. "You okay? Are you coming to school?" It was hard to tell from Steph's message whether she knew Atticus was missing or if she had just learned Jamie wasn't in school. They had the same lunch period, and this year it was their only time during the school day when they could get together. Jamie sniffled and punched the numbers on the phone keypad to return a message. She'd never realized how much a secret could isolate someone. This was her best friend, and she couldn't even tell her what was going on. "I'm okay. Be in soon." She hit send and then snapped the phone shut. "Come on, do your thing," she commanded, sweeping her hand out in front of her. Given his freedom, Atticus dashed for all the same trees he'd hit during the night, then moved on to new ones. So predictable, Jamie thought. She gave him a few more minutes and then took him back inside. She refilled the water bowl and added some pieces of the dog food to the Kong. It would keep him occupied pushing it and throwing it up in the air in an attempt to get the pieces out. After she locked the door, he scuttled to the window and watched her leave, sending up a mournful howl. Even though he sounded sad, at least this time she felt better about leaving him. Now he knew she'd come back, just like she promised. When Jamie arrived at school, she reported to the office first to get a pass to class. Mrs. Wilbur, the office secretary, greeted her at the counter, a hopeful gleam in her eyes. "Did you find Atticus?" Jamie was stunned. She opened her mouth to ask Mrs. Wilbur how she knew he was missing, and then she remembered Christy Jensen. No, not yet," she stammered. When a look of pity crossed Mrs. Wilbur's features, Jamie quickly added, But we will. I know we will. I hope so, dear. Mrs. Wilbur pushed her blue glasses up on her nose and pulled a blue pen from behind her ear. She scribbled the time on a pink hall pass. What class are you going to? Jamie glanced at the clock. It was the middle of third period. Study hall. Mrs. Wilbur slid a clipboard across the counter in front of Jamie. Sign in, please, sweetie. Jamie signed her name and the time she came in halfway down the sheet on the next open line, then set the pen on the clipboard and slid it back. To her left was a poster about the 8th grade graduation dance in 2 weeks. It was a plea for parents to sign up to help supervise games and the dance itself. Mrs. Wilbur handed the pass across the counter to Jamie. I'll pray that you find your dog. Jamie looked at her a moment. Yeah, okay, thanks. Then she heard from the office, shaking her head. Now even God was involved. Who was next? When Jamie entered the class, the students in study hall weren't in their seats bent over their books. Instead, they huddled around desks that had been pushed together. Big pieces of white oak tag covered each desk. Mr. Martin, the study hall monitor, looked up from the papers he was grading. Oh, Jamie, you're here. I'm sorry to hear about your dog. Thanks. Jamie approached Mr. Martin's desk and handed him the pass. What's going on? Your classmates wanted to do something to help. Take a look. Jamie let her backpack slide off her shoulder and drop next to a desk. She approached the closest group of students. When they noticed her, they separated, allowing her to move closer to their desks. Her heart tripped when Kyle Cody, the cutest boy in 8th grade, stepped forward. He'd moved to town at the beginning of the school year, and he'd made friends, but he had never claimed a girlfriend. Hey, Jamie, he said. Come here and look. It was hard for Jamie to pull her gaze from his cool blue eyes. Was he really looking at her and smiling? She didn't know he even realized she existed. Jamie, he repeated. You okay? Do you want to see what we made? Jamie's tongue twisted as she tried to form a response. Yes. Looking down at the desk, she fought to keep her jaw from dropping open. She swiveled and looked at all the other desks as the students stepped away. On every one was a huge missing dog poster with an 8x10 colored photograph of her with Atticus in the middle. Where'd you get that picture? Mr. Martin stepped up beside her. We had it in a folder on the school database. It's from the day you did your how-to presentation and you brought Atticus into school. Oh, she was speechless, flabbergasted by how fast Atticus's disappearance was developing into a complicated situation. The other kids stared at her expectantly. Was she supposed to say something? Do something? So, what are these for? She asked. Kyle seemed to be the spokesperson. Since September, she'd wished she could be the center of his attention, and now that she was, she wished she could disappear. Dr. McConley gave us permission to go out during lunch and hang them around town. Hang them? Jamie couldn't believe how tongue-tied she was, and it had nothing to do with the 8th grade heartthrob paying attention to her. Well, yeah, he said. He frowned at her like he thought she'd lost her mind. We figure the sooner we get them hung up, the better the chance that someone will have spotted Atticus and call with information. Jamie gulped. Why had she said something to Christy Jensen at the bus this morning? They'd been neighbors and in school together since preschool, and Christy had always been a blabbermouth. It was part of the reason that she and Jamie had never become close friends. She was a busybody who was always into everyone else's business. And now she had caused this. Michelle Danaher stepped forward from another table. We know how much Atticus means to you, Jamie. He means a lot to us, too. He's kind of like our mascot, you know. Jamie nodded and continued to look at the different posters. Across the top, in large letters and a variety of colors, was written Missing Dog in capital letters. Each sign provided the pertinent information, Atticus's name, his owner, and then, as Kyle told her, they'd looked up the phone number for Charté Kennels on the internet, and they'd included that, too. In the middle was the big glossy photo of her and Atticus cheek to cheek. They both looked so innocent. but Jamie felt so guilty. The tone for the end of the period reverberated through the room, and almost instantly the study hall room door banged open and Stephanie barged in. Normally she was quiet, and people hardly noticed she was in the room, but the worry etched across her face even transformed the way she looked. "Jamie, I just heard about Atticus. Did you find him? Is he okay?" Some of the other students returned to put the finishing touches on their posters, while others filed out of the room. Jamie squeezed her eyes shut and looked down, embarrassed by the attention and wishing she hadn't started all this. "Oh, I'm sorry," Stephanie cooed. "You didn't find him, did you?" Jamie shook her head and then looked up. "But we will." She glanced around the room at the kids busy with the posters. "Everyone's being so nice." She stepped back toward Kyle's table and picked up the poster. "Look, they made a bunch of these during study hall." "Nice!" Stephanie's attention was on Kyle Cody as she drew out the word, and Jamie didn't miss it. "Steph," she whispered, "the posters." "Oh, yeah, they're nice too." Stephanie flipped the lock of her brown hair back over her shoulder, glanced at the poster, then back at Kyle. She leaned in close to Jamie and whispered, "I can't believe Kyle Cody is doing this for you. Here's your chance." Jamie laughed, the first genuine laugh in almost a week. "What?" She grabbed Stephanie by the shoulders and pushed her toward the door. "Kyle Cody has absolutely no interest in me. Zero, zippo, zilch. He's just worried about Atticus." "Uh-huh," Stephanie responded with a wink. Jamie gave her another little shove. "Go away. I'll see you at lunch." Stephanie giggled and scurried out the door. Jamie turned to go and pick up her backpack. Kyle stood next to her desk holding all of the rolled up posters under one arm and a stack of books cradled in the other hand. "Jamie, I was thinking we could meet after school and I'll help you look for Atticus. What do you think?" His dark brown hair was cut perfectly around his ears, and every strand looked like it had its place. She stared at him as if he'd just spoken a different language. Could the timing be any worse? I can't. I have to get to the kennel." "I'll go with you," he offered. "Thanks, but you've already done enough." Kyle started to back away. "Well, okay. I just thought it might help to have another set of eyes and ears." Inside, she was beating herself up. How long had she waited for this chance to get to know Kyle Cody? And now he was practically asking her out on a date, and she was saying no. "Yeah, it would, but I think I should check with Charlotte first. She owns the kennel." She grabbed a piece of ripped scrap paper that someone had dropped on the floor and held it out to Kyle. "Do you have something to write with?" "Yeah." He pulled a cap pen out of his front pocket. "I'll give you my cell phone number," Jamie said, "and you can call me later. Then I can tell you if Charlotte says it's all right for you to come out, okay?" He yanked the cap off and set the pen to the paper. "Sure." Jamie gave him her number and watched as he folded the paper and shoved it in his pocket. Her phone number was in his pocket. She never dreamed she'd see that day come. "See you later, Jamie. I'll call." "Okay." Did her voice squeak? To her it sounded like it did. She hoped it didn't sound that way to Kyle. She followed him out of the room, and then he turned left and started down the hall away from her. After a few steps, he pivoted and flashed a smile over his shoulder. Jamie turned right, sure she would melt any second. She wondered if Kyle was only feeling sorry for her or if he was truly interested in her as a girl. She figured she'd find out soon enough. She bounced down the stairs to her math class. When she turned the corner, she was taken back by one of the large missing dog posters already hanging next to the front doors of the school. The truth kicked her in the stomach, taking her breath away. How interested would Kyle be when he found out what she'd done? Her excitement deflated like a defective balloon. One of her grandfather's favorite sayings by a famous man named Sir Walter Scott jumped to mind. "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." When she was a little girl, he explained the meaning when she'd accidentally knocked over her grandmother's favorite plant and then made up an elaborate story for how it happened. Now she'd weaved another tangled web all right, and every time she turned around, it seemed like the spider in the web was waiting to bite her. Maybe it was wrong, but this was one time when she knew she had to follow her heart and not her head. She couldn't lose Atticus. That's the end of chapter 6. And I just want to leave you with the saying that she remembered from her grandfather. And that saying is, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." What do you think that saying means? If you take it apart and really think about it, and think about it literally, which means picture it, it might help you figure out the figurative meaning or the meaning that's kind of hidden in it. That's all for today. We'll have chapter 7 tomorrow at 1:30. See you then. Bye.